Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well, and welcome back to another edition of the Daily Tottenham Transfer News Show. My name is Chris Cowlin, and today I'll be joined by Craig Dearman. We'll be covering all of the latest Spurs news, rumours and reports. Of course, it is the 6th of January, day 6 of the January transfer window. There is now 27 days left. Of course, it closes on the 2nd of Feb at 7 p.m. Now, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you are watching on YouTube. Press like, comment below, and turn on that notification bell so YouTube informs you every single time we upload a video and go live. We're also live on Facebook and on X. Now, let's get into it. Craig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, Chris. Yeah, thanks for having me back. Few stories today. So, yeah, looking forward to discussing these.
Absolutely. We've got one which is some breaking news from the Daily Telegraph involving Mohammed Kudus, who of course went off after 19 minutes in Tottenham's 1-1 draw against Sunderland at the weekend. The Telegraph just reported that Tottenham weigh up January move for attacker after Mohammed Kudus' blow. Scans show injury picked up at the weekend are worse than feared, as Thomas Frank admits side are a little bit short on offensive options. And the Daily Telegraph also state that Mohammed Kudus is set to miss several matches. Now, of course, we don't know as yet how bad this injury is. Watch this space, and I've no doubt that Thomas Frank will update us whether that is any good or not, because some of these updates regarding injuries have not been that great, or they don't actually give us much information. Craig, Ben Davies said on Sunday, after the injury and after the game, Ben Davies described it as sod's law. That's exactly what I'd say, sod's law. The injury record at Spurs in the last couple of seasons certainly has been absolutely abysmal. Of course, sod's law as well that we let Brennan Johnson go out the door. He would have been the ideal replacement to come straight into the team. What do you make of this news?
It is just that, isn't it? It's sod's law. Is it the fact that Kudus has been overplayed the last few weeks? He certainly had a few rests, hasn't he? But I know some people on X were saying, "Oh, perhaps Thomas Frank's overplayed him and should have used Brendan Johnson more." But you can say that all you like. I mean, he went down off the ball, didn't he? So it's one of those that's probably going to take a bit of time. I never like to see that when a player goes down off the ball, no contact or anything. So you just don't know. I mean, it's going to be weeks by the sound of it, isn't it? He hasn't actually said what he's done. It looked to me like it was something to do with his hip or outer thigh. But yeah, it's just typical bad luck again from Spurs, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, incredibly bad luck. Let's talk a little bit about 3 loan recalls. And I'll tell you what, during these episodes that we've done in the past week or so, this is all we seem to be talking about. Loan recalls at the club. George Abbott has returned to the club following his loan spell at Wycombe Wanderers. The 20-year-old academy product made 15 appearances in all competitions for the League One side after linking up with them in the summer. He scored 1 goal during his time at Adams Park, which came in a 2-0 home victory over Northampton back in September. The second one, Alfie Dorrington, has just been recalled from his loan at Aberdeen, having spent the second half of the 24-25 campaign on loan in Scotland, where he lifted the Scottish Cup in May. The defender rejoined the Scottish Premiership side in July on loan. He then went on to make a further 14 appearances for the Dons, including 6 in European competition. And Fabrizio Romano has just stated this one hasn't been confirmed by Spurs as yet, but lots of reports on this one from very reliable sources that Yang Min-hyuk is set to join Coventry on loan from Tottenham, as deal has been agreed today. Of course, he has spent the first half of this season on loan at Portsmouth. Craig, I mentioned this, I think it was yesterday, regarding me praising Spurs, actually, in terms of loan recalls. If Spurs don't feel that players are getting the most out of their loan spells and getting the development and the minutes certainly that they need, the club then end up recalling players and then finding better loans. The Yang Min-hyuk one in particular, Coventry are doing extremely well in the Championship under Frank Lampard. What do you make of these 3 loan recalls, particularly the one for Yang Min-hyuk?
The Yang Min-hyuk one's quite interesting because I thought he was actually doing okay. He'd scored a couple of goals, hasn't he? And become more influential in their performances from what we're led to believe. So Alfie Dorrington, not so much. Look, any loan, if it's not working, if the club don't feel it's working, that's the beauty of the loan system. You can bring them back in January and either incorporate them into your squad if you need to, if you've got a few injuries yourself, which of course we have, but it looks like these 3 are going to be going out on loan. So the main thing, and the only thing I'll say on it is I just hope they get loans where they're going to get minutes, because it's pointless otherwise. They might as well stay at Spurs and train with the first team if that's what the manager deems. So the most important thing is them getting minutes, and the Yang Min-hyuk one, like I say, was more of a surprise than the other 2. But hopefully all 3 players will get minutes over the coming, the last few months of the season.
Before we move on to one of your stories, I wanted to ask you about Dane Scarlett. Would you expect him to go out on loan in the January window?
At the moment, I think we need all attacking options we can get, to be honest with you, because I think the bench is going to be full of kids against Bournemouth, as somebody said in the chat there. Totally agree. I mean, we've got Muani, Tell, Richarlison and Odegaard as our fit front 4. So if one of those get injured, who have we got? So I think Dane Scarlett might go out on loan, but it depends what Spurs, I would say, do in the transfer market. And hopefully we will be bringing players in.
Sky Germany reported today as well about Matisse Tell. They said that the reports linking Matisse Tell to Galatasaray for a loan spell until the end of the season are wide of the mark. So we should dismiss those rumours right now.
Yes. Yeah. I saw that as well. So, Roma, I think we're in for him as well, but we'll see how that goes. I can't see Thomas Frank going to want to let any offensive players go unless we get a couple in, because it looks like the Kudus one is probably going to be, like I say, a few weeks. Just one for me, we did discuss this yesterday. I think Magnez Akliouche, still more rumours flying around. There's one today from Team Talk that Spurs are very interested in the player. Obviously, a young player would be new to the Premier League. Nothing new on this essentially, but the rumours still seem to be the fact that Spurs are very interested in the player, but it's going to be obviously an expensive deal to get done. What I'd say about Akliouche, and the reason I bring it up again is if people aren't familiar with him, we did play against him when we played Monaco earlier in the season in the draw down in Monaco. He's a very good progressive ball carrier, tricky midfielder, likes to dribble with the ball, carrying the ball forward, can pick a pass as well. And you could argue, some people would say, well, we've got James Maddison when he comes back. You've got Dejan Kulusevski playing that role. You've got Xavi Simons. Why can't we have more of this type of offensive player that can actually play in other positions other than just the 10? He can play out wide. He can do all manner of things, and that is kind of what the club wants. So I thought I'd mention Akliouche again because, in my opinion, he is a real player, in my opinion.
Yeah, sometimes though, Craig, real players, those current clubs want to keep hold of those players. And is this a realistic signing in the January transfer window? I keep referring back to this on the other episodes. When you're talking about big players who are currently, performing well for their current clubs, is it realistic in January? Probably not. Summer signings, perhaps. And that's the thing, isn't it? January transfer windows are all about opportunities sometimes where players aren't playing particularly well for their current clubs, falling out with managers, etc., etc. or looking for a brand new challenge. Team Talk are on fire with stories right now because this one has come from them. Crystal Palace, Everton, Fulham and Tottenham will have the opportunity to sign Strand Larsen in the winter transfer window. The 4 Premier League clubs are all being informed about his situation. Meanwhile, Wolves are ready to cash in on the Norwegian international by accepting a bid of around £40 million. I've got to say, Craig, I've no doubt at all that Wolves are going to probably start thinking about selling some of their players. They've been selling a lot of players anyway in the last 12 months. That's probably why they're in the position where they are, bottom of the table, only 1 win. I would hope that Spurs would, aim a lot higher, and I hope that Spurs do have an ace or two up their sleeve, and particularly, with the I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, but Brennan Johnson goes out the door. A couple of days ago, Mohammed Kudus then gets injured. Of course, it would have been the perfect replacement for Johnson to come in, and we know what he can do in games, score, assist, etc. But Strand Larsen, does this one come as a surprise to you? Would you welcome him? Do you think he would do well in a Spurs shirt?
It's just like that would be a typical Spurs deal. I think the price that there's been touted around is far too much for him as well. It looks like Wolves are going to be relegated this season. Is that all we're about? I personally think we should be aiming higher than Strand Larsen. I'm sure he's decent enough player for Wolves, but come on,
we used to have Son and Kane.
We used to have Son and Kane, and we had Gareth Bale at one time as well. We had 3 of them up front one season under Mourinho a few years ago, and now we're talking about Strand Larsen. Come on, no way. That would just be a typical Spurs signing. As somebody else had said in the chat earlier, Callum Wilson trying to end his contract with West Ham. Wouldn't that be a Tottenham signing to go and get Callum Wilson? It's.
Come on, Craig. We're only 6 days in the transfer window. Let's not go down these routes yet.
I know, but these are the sort of things that are being reported, aren't they? I'm not going to worry yet because I've always said, transfer window, like I say, end of the month. They've got till then to do it. But this one, more than any others, we've got to get players through the door early, and we obviously haven't yet.
Yeah. Can I come on? Can I come on to this next one? And this is more of a transfer for somebody else rather than us. So forgive me on this, but it is Tottenham related, kind of. Bournemouth boss Andoni Iraola has confirmed that Antoine Semenyo will play against Tottenham on Wednesday evening. He's also said that it could be his, or most likely to be his last game for the club. And Sky Sports have just reported in the last couple of hours that Semenyo actually has a medical booked at the Etihad for Thursday morning. Of course, Craig, Semenyo, what a player. I think both of us have said many, many times what a player that he would be in a Spurs shirt. Sadly, this isn't the case. And sadly, we are missing out on a top player again. Obviously wanting to go to Manchester City to, be a part of their success, play under Pep Guardiola and, compete for trophies, compete on all fronts, etc., etc. What I wanted to ask you is, Semenyo, what will be going through his mind when you are playing, which looks like it could be the final game in a Bournemouth shirt? He's had a great career at Bournemouth in the last couple of years. We've, been very excited seeing the way that he plays in the Premier League. What will be going through his mind? Because obviously he wants to give a top performance in his last appearance for Bournemouth, but I've no doubt that we'll be going through his mind to think, well, I've got a medical in the morning, so I can't get injured in this game. Yes,
absolutely. I'm sure he's a consummate professional and will want to give all his all in front of the Bournemouth fans as a kind of swan song. But it's going to, he's not going to want to get injured, is he? In the club, if Bournemouth indeed obviously want the money from this sale, they're not going to want their prize asset to get injured just before a move. Logic would say that he's not going to have an absolute barnstormer against Spurs and be, sliding into everything and running around the pitch at 100 miles an hour, but he doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. So I think they'll probably perhaps substitute him after about 60, 70 minutes if there's any hint of anything. but they're not. The player in the club. What I'm trying to say is the player in the club are not going to want to jeopardise that move to Manchester City. So, but apparently he's going to play, isn't he? So yeah, shame. Another one missed out on because he would have been ideal, wouldn't he? The only other story today for me is one again. Team talk. He's mentioned team talk. Ademola Lookman. Spurs are still interested in Ademola Lookman. Had a brilliant season last season, but this season hasn't hit the numbers that he did last. But he's still a quality player. Now, for me, Ademola Lookman, when you look at his stats, Premier League experience as well, I think he would be a really good fit at Tottenham. Again, I don't know how much this transfer would cost. I didn't actually see how much they're saying that the player's up for. It's not like the club want to sell. So more that the player, does the player want Spurs, I suppose, is the main thing. Or does the player want to stay in Italy? I would take him at Tottenham. Would you take Lookman, Chris?
I think the positives are that he can play in a couple of different positions. I think the positives are that he has got Premier League experience. Is he better than what we've got? Of course, he's a full international. I'm not sure, to be honest, Craig. I always think that I want the very, very, very best at Spurs, and I'm not sure if I'm completely honest. Do you think he's going to make a real? If he came in at Tottenham, do you think he's going to make a real dramatic impact?
I think we all want that type of player that's going to come in and just have an immediate impact. We've tried to sign him before. The only one that come in and actually lived up to the hype when he came back, and that was only on loan, was Gareth Bale, and he hardly played. I mean, he scored 17 goals that season, but that's Gareth Bale. You kind of know what you're getting. And really, he was just seeing out his career, wasn't he? I was actually surprised he didn't stay around, to be honest. But it's, I suppose you've got to look at what's out there, and it is somebody like Lookman, the best of the bunch. And I guess that's subjective. Any of these are subjective, aren't they? But is he going to make a difference? Is it just another body up front, which Thomas Frank has said we don't want to bring people in just for numbers? And I do get that. I do understand that.
What I'd say is, why have other Premier League clubs not come in for him when he's got that Premier League experience, having played at Fulham and Leicester and even Charlton and Everton?
Yeah, valid point.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. At Atalanta, 41 goals, 104 games. We could certainly do with goals, and we could certainly do with someone finishing in that final third. But I must admit, Craig, I'm not sure on that one. Milan Live have stated that AC Milan are looking to sign Tottenham Hotspur defender Radu Dragusin in the January transfer window. I've got to admit, for me, Craig, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Radu go out on loan in this second part of the season. That wouldn't surprise me at all. And also Team Talk and Madrid Universal are stating that Real Madrid are weighing up a swoop for Spurs right back Pedro Porro. I don't think that one's for the January transfer window. I think that there might be interest in some of our players. Romero, Van de Ven, Pedro Porro. I wouldn't be at all surprised if there's a lot of interest from top European clubs. And my worry as a Spurs fan right now, particularly with players like Van de Ven and Romero, is that at the end of the season, will they be thinking, shall I stay at Spurs? Shall I go somewhere else who are going to compete on all fronts, win trophies, and go for it? Because will Spurs have done enough this season, at the end of the season, for them to think, this is the place to be? Because it's been great where a lot of players in the past have chosen Spurs because they felt like Spurs were going places. And if it is a really poor January transfer window for Tottenham, and if it is a really poor finish to the season, having finished 17th last year, as a lot of people keep saying, including Thomas Frank, although we won the Europa League, winning the Europa League is a real positive for us as a football club, but it could also be in the back of a player's mind thinking that success, that parade, all of that was incredible. I want to feel like that again. I know, Craig, we've said that we want to feel like that again and again as fans, but for a player, when they've experienced that success, players will want to feel like that again, and they will want to be at top clubs. Like, why is Antoine Semenyo going to Manchester City? Because he wants to win trophies. He wants to be competing on all fronts. What do you make of the report about Pedro Porro, and like I've said about Romero van der Ven?
I agree. They're not going anywhere in January. 100%. No. They're not going anywhere in January. Summer, possibly. I would argue that Pedro Porro is probably easier to replace than the other two. Romero, look, I love Romero on his day. I love his passion, his aggression, but sometimes he can be a liability. Is it easier to replace a top centre-back? Possibly. Mickey van der Ven, different kettle of fish. There's not many of him around. That's why I'm surprised Spurs haven't tried to continue to tie Mickey van der Ven down to a new deal. I think that would settle everyone's nerves if they did that, because let's face it, he does deserve a wage increase, and to be up there with some of the best paid players at the club. It's all about Spurs, like you say. It's all about Spurs showing these sort of players that Spurs is the team to be at. I mean, we tried to do it for a number of years with Harry Kane, and eventually he left. Ironically, we won a trophy the season after he left, but it's the same old story, isn't it? And comes down to Enoch backing the manager, and the manager getting more out of this team. And we've got to finish in those European positions, because players like you say, Van der Ven and Romero, they're not going to want to not have European football next season. So I think European football, as a minimum, is paramount for the club.
Craig, just a quick one. Former Spurs coach Ryan Mason has been sacked by West Bromwich Albion. I've seen a number of people talking about this today. A number of Spurs fans, including some big accounts, saying, would you take Ryan Mason from now to the end of the season to take charge of Spurs if anything happens with Thomas Frank? What are your thoughts on this one?
Do you want to answer that first? Look, all I'll say is that would be the most Spurs thing ever, wouldn't it? It really would. Pluses for Ryan Mason, he knows the club. And he might actually get the fans back on side. But for me, probably not, to be honest with you. If the club are going to sack Thomas Frank, then by all means bring in an interim. I don't think there's much out there. Look, we've seen like Amorim get the sack. Nuno is teetering, isn't he? Chelsea have just sacked their manager. So, there's a lot going on in the managerial world at the moment. I'm not sure who Spurs would go for if they sack Frank. I would imagine it would be an interim until the summer. But for me, if you're asking me, should we get Ryan Mason back? I would say no. I saw a clip earlier, Ryan Mason's post-match press conference. They just lost, and obviously he's now got the sack. There were a number of defeats, and one of the journalists asked him about the crowd booing at full time in the 94th minute, and Mason did nothing but talk very highly about the fans, saying, well, for the whole of the 94 minutes, they were absolutely fantastic for us, and yes, they're frustrated. We've lost another football match, and all he did was big up the crowd. Even though they booed at the end, all he did was say really, really positive things about the crowd. And I tell you what, I really like that. I really like the way that Ryan Mason conducts himself. And when he took over as interim manager twice at Tottenham, the way that he conducted himself and the way that he answered questions to the media, I think was excellent, top notch, actually. Yeah.
Finally, Craig, this one, on Sousa, team talk again. Tottenham remain interested in signing Santos defender. Multiple clubs are interested in the player. However, Tottenham are the most advanced in the race, and they have already proposed a deal worth 10 million euros. The Brazilian club is demanding double that, and they will only sell the defender for around 20 million euros. It remains to be seen whether Tottenham are prepared, and I love this bit, to break the bank for the teenager. Despite the initial proposal being rejected, Tottenham are refusing to give up on the chase and are continuing talks with the South American outfit. And reports in Brazil, literally in the last hour or so, they are stating that the player is actually open to joining Spurs. He likes the idea of playing in England in the Premier League and living in London. All positives for the player. But Santos, the club, are waiting now for a new, improved offer. This is going to be an interesting one, Craig. I think that this one will probably end up getting done at some point. I think that Tottenham are probably going to propose a deal of we'll give you 10 million euros up front, and then plus it will be add-ons. This is how contracts are done now, aren't they? They're very complicated. It's never straightforward like it was done, back in the day. It's all based on appearances and goals and what you can win and league positions and clauses galore. I feel that that's what it's going to be about. But is this player, my question would be, is this player 19 years old going to come in and play minutes in the Premier League in the second half of this season? Would he go out on loan, or would he end up joining the development side? So we don't know how far along his development is, himself, to be playing Premier League minutes.
No, and what I would say to that is the club should still be looking at these sort of opportunities, and people shouldn't poo-poo it just because it's a player that not necessarily won't come into the first 11 and improve it straight away. If there is a player that they've scouted and they think, it seems like a lot of the top clubs are after this kid, then they should get him. He's not going to cost a fortune in wages, but people wouldn't mind as much. But that's kind of the only thing that we're seeing Spurs do concrete at the moment, this move. So I think if it was coupled alongside a couple of deals that look to be progressing, I don't think people would mind so much. But this is the only one that Spurs are kind of progressing with at the moment. So people are seeing that and seeing it as, we don't need kids. Look, we don't. We know we all need. We all know what we all need. We need experience. We need players that are going to hit the ground running and change the team for the better now. But if they really want this kid and they want to get him in, like I say, wages aren't going to be an issue. Just pay the money, get it done, and move on to other things, because we desperately need players now.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, I think you need a really good mixture of young, talented stars, rising stars for the future, etc. But also, like you said, we need experienced players, impact players, players that can walk straight into the team and make a real difference. Would you be disappointed if Spurs signed players on loan? Because that could be an option of Tottenham having players on loan, decent players, coming in and having an option to buy at the end of the season. It's never a bad thing, is it?
No. I haven't got a problem with that at all. We've done that on many occasions. Sometimes we haven't taken up the option, and sometimes we have. Look what with Timo Werner. That one didn't quite work out, but Matisse Tell, think what you like about Tell, but he was on loan. So it happens a lot in football. Try before you buy. So haven't got a problem with that as long as we get the players in. Yep.
There's not actually a great deal to talk about, Craig. I know we're nearly half hour in, but we're on day 6 of the January transfer window. Some of these stories we've gone over again that we have done in the past 6 days. But that is all we can bring you at the moment. Craig, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. We'll see you again soon.
Yep. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And 27 days left of the January transfer window. Of course, it does close on the 2nd of Feb at 7 p.m. Thanks so much. Have a good week, and come on, you Spurs.